If you think about a first impressions no longer start at the first interview. Candidates will always form opinions about you, your workplace, from sources like Glassdoor, certified profiles, LinkedIn before they apply, Reddit. We're going to talk more about that. This shift means job seekers can gather information and seek decisions and make decisions without ever having a conversation with you. So to attract that top talent, it's crucial in these early impressions to align with what the candidate's looking for, not making it more difficult.
Hi, I'm Courtney Harmon, Director of Industry Relations at Crelate. Welcome to another episode of the Full Desk Experience.
All right, guys. For those of you who don't know, my name is Courtney Harmon. I am the Director of Industry Relations here at Crelate. And over the past decade, I've trained thousands of frontline recruiters, and I've worked with hundreds of business agencies and owners to try to help their firms and agencies grow. If you know me, I love training and process and workshops and trying to teach. So here we are today. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. This is actually a form of one of the things that we actually presented at Staffing World. So it is amazing. It's called Beyond the Search, Innovative Talent Acquisition Strategies for Direct Hire Success. Today, we're actually going to share quite a few things with you guys live, whether it's ebooks, additional podcast, on our virtual conference. So, hey, Katie, before everybody gets crazy busy and anybody has to drop, do you think you could drop a link to our executive search virtual conference for March 20th? Look at her go. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, it's www.fdexecsearch.heysummit.com. Now, we have actually some amazing speakers there. If you've heard of Dan, she's amazing. We have Mike Gianta. We have a panel. We have our own Chris Hessen there to chat, as well as Trisha Tamkin. It's action-packed. It is not as long as the other one, but we would love to have you. Just an amazing thing to be able to be a part of. We're talking Beyond the Search. Again, it's really the idea of talent acquisition has really changed over the past few years for a few reasons. And if you have seen another reason that we're not talking about, feel free to throw it in the chat. I want you to think about, what is your current talent acquisition strategy? How are you sourcing? How are you finding? Because I guarantee in some way, shape, or form that it's changed over the past 3 years. And honestly, it's going to continue to change. My husband's a fisherman, for those of you who don't know, so I love to relate either to sports or fishing. And my theme here is, it's time to stop fishing at the same talent pools and start creating your own ecosystem. Because honestly, we have to feed ourselves. We have to figure this out on our own as well, versus just posting and praying or relying on the few methods that we use today. Because while they might work today, or they might work in some capacity, we need to continue to innovate. And let's face it, rapid technology advancements is really changing the game. It's evolving. It's being driven by enhancements with generative AI, all of these other automations that are happening automatically on the back end. I don't know if any of you have tried the new ChatGPT, the paid version, but I've got to see from Benjamin Mennett and all these wonderful other people that what it's doing in the back end, it's changing our business. So these technologies are transforming companies, the sources, our access to hire good talent. The other thing I think we're seeing in some capacity is a shift towards skill-based hiring. I actually had this conversation with somebody today. There is a growing emphasis on skill-based hiring rather than those traditional qualifications of degrees and other things and certifications that we've had in the past, depending on what industry you're in. So please take that with a caveat. So companies are increasingly looking for candidates with specific skills and competencies. And if you've lived under a rock, you might not have heard this, but DE&I has been a crazy turn of events, from the new administration to see how companies are shifting. That's always going to be something that we're going to have to stay abreast of. And honestly, your traditional methods may be falling short right now. They might be lengthy. They might be insufficient. Your processes may be broken, and that's okay. We're going to talk about some of those today. You might actually have higher cost associated with your traditional methods of job posting, agency fees if you're working with somebody else through maybe a corp to corp option. Your turnover might be high and can even be substantial. So we need to think flexibility. How are we doing things differently, and how can we stand out from the mix? So let's talk about current state of our talent acquisition. 50% of recruiting firms cited talent acquisition as their top priority for 2024. Now, I know we're in 2025. The grid report just came out from Bullhorn. I need to dive in, but I have not even gotten a chance to do that. But we know it's a focus for us. 30%, 37%, sorry, words are hard. 37% of firms are reporting that candidate acquisition was their biggest challenge last year. So that means they may have had the jobs, but they didn't quite have the talent to associate with it. The applicant to interview ratio was 2% in 2023. Now, this means that for every 100 applicants for a job posting, 2 of those applicants were invited to an interview for a role. And this number is a low number than employers would like to see, but oftentimes can be a sign of unqualified candidates or interview ghosting really plaguing our hiring process. 36%. The interview to placement ratio was 36%. This is down slightly from the year previously, so in 2022. But when you consider that just 2% of those when you consider those odds, that means only 0.6 of these people are even getting placed. So that means you have to have 150 good candidates, 3 that are interviewing to actually get a placement. So not bad maybe for direct hire, but we want to be able to continue to do better and be more efficient. I thought this one was interesting. I would love to know from your perspective, from your teams. Hiring managers spend about 7 seconds on average looking at a candidate's resume. And last but not least, this is something that I've talked about quite a few times on the podcast, but by 2030, there's going to be a global human talent shortage by 85 million people. That's going to result in about $8.5 trillion of unrealized annual revenues. That is like so impactful. So we have to figure out how we can actually hire differently. So that means we actually have to get a short-term win as well as a long-term win. Yes, Jared, short-term hacks. So we need to figure out where can we get the immediate results. So whether you're thinking sourcing content like maximizing your LinkedIn, what is your job board strategies today? Are you revitalizing your internal database? I know that might make you cringe when I say that out loud, but let's face it, you spend all of that time and effort getting candidates into your system. What are we doing with it? Are we implementing effective, maybe sequencing techniques or campaigns that are happening? Are we doing database cleanup strategies at least once to twice a year to make sure we have accurate information? Are we enhancing maybe your referral programs? Maybe you don't even have one, but referral programs, especially in the direct hire space, is where it's at. And then good old fashioned flipping the resume. So think about mining old resumes for people that you're talking to, maybe throwing them into AI. Well, not throwing the whole PPI stuff, but maybe throwing it in, seeing where they've actually worked previously. Because what does that tell you? That tells you that they have worked at companies that you are actually staffing people for. Because if they've been there, they've been another place, right? So we can go call on those companies to say, I'm working with a person. I would love to give you an MPC, right? That's not a term that's foreign to us. But you can really reverse recruit, so to say. You can use AI to create Boolean searches to uncover talent. I want to not discourage you from employee referrals. Every office that I've worked at has said they've had them, but they have failed to execute them correctly. Employee referrals really account for 30% of hires. That is the quickest concept to getting people in the door and money that you can attest for short term. So we need to feel the impact. So we can't just do these post and prays. It's part of our job. I understand. It's a necessary evil. Um, for these reasons, we need to do something beyond, right? Don't just post and pray. You need to navigate your job board options. You really need to figure out, produce quality. And job boards don't always produce quality. It's quantity for job boards. So there's a stark difference in you hiring direct hire people of quantity versus quality. Um, so I would say number one is making sure you understand where you're getting your data. If you see these reports over to the right, these are actually, if you're a Crelate user, you've probably seen these before. It's where you're getting your candidates, it's giving you real time information. And these are amazing resources to actually help you through that quality versus quantity, picking and choosing for your needs, evaluating your investments of where you're spending your money internally as an organization to know if the cost is worth the payoff. So you need to really figure out the shifting through the mess when it comes to job board strategies. I'm not saying it's not a strategy. You absolutely should have one. But what I would encourage you is to really make that intentional. Your teams, I talked about this, about your database. Where are they going first? If you have an SOP, are you making them go to your own system first? And a lot of times we don't. We go to the well every single time. I actually had a conversation with Chris from Averity. He's a CEO. And he was saying how much their organization scaled just because they had the right data in their system. And I know that sounds so simple, but it's really the idea they were spending their time revitalizing their ATS and really making sure their data entry practices were cleaner than anything. And that's probably a shift for a lot of us because we are often going so fast. You probably don't need to have as many assigned tasks in that record to say, I need all of this information. But maybe you can figure out to standardize your data entry, maybe utilize skill tags, minimal field requirements. Think about assigning candidate and client records to somebody for management, right? So then you can have them on a campaign or a list to be able to automate that in the back end. But I think that's on the daily execution. Where oftentimes organization fails is on the annual maintenance. And when I say annual maintenance, you and I are so busy fighting fires every single day. There are often times that there are records that are incomplete. There are duplicates that we don't necessarily know which one's the right one. And maybe we have data in our system that is old and we will never use. I would encourage you at least once to twice a year, if you have somebody that is helping you with data entry or you have an intern for this summer, this is a great effort for them to be able to help you clean up your data, like responsibly, in the idea to do something more intentional with your data. It's as simple as that twice a year, go look for any record that doesn't have an email, any record that doesn't have a phone number. Because if they don't have an email or a phone number, what is the point of them even being in your system? Because you can't reach out to them if you wanted to anyway. So there's my tangent on database decay. It is no different than not going to the dentist twice a year to be able to get your maintenance cleanings. You need to do the same for your database because let's face it, that is what your organization is worth. We talked about this. I'm curious if you've heard of the R's. Katie, I'm springing this on you, but I think we did an automation on the 4 R's with Chris Hessen. Maybe if you have time, you could throw that in there. If not, no big deal. We can find that later. But when you're looking to bring on new talent, it can be an easily focused of external, ignoring your internal resources. But employee referrals are often overlooked. Your references are often overlooked in that reverse recruiting. We kind of talked about that for a second. But if you're not running specific referral incentives, maybe this is a great time to do that. I've worked at organizations that they maybe had a monetary amount, $50, or let's face it, birds of a feather flock together. So if we know somebody in our industry, we want to know who else they know. But you have to earn the right to get that information. You can't just ask them on that first conversation. So, we talked about referrals being 30% higher conversion rate than leads. It's going to be quickest to the money for you. So, again, when you think reverse recruiting, think about boomerang employees who may have left to try to get something new, but due to maybe restructuring, you want to go back to them. It's really trying to keep track of the people in our database, where they worked previously, making sure all of those companies are in there. Because oftentimes we get caught in the monotony of going faster, doing more mentality, not being more intentional. I better keep talking because I have quite a bit here. Standing out from your competition, you have to differentiate your approach. Implementing high touch, low volume. Okay. It's really about, if you've gotten a chance to tune into any of our other things, we did a multi-channel touchpoint strategy. It's essentially a 12-point touch plan strategy. You can use it in recruiting, you can use it in sales, but it's like, what is my strategy? And you can create that in a drip campaign. It can be happening in your sequences on the back end, but really helping you not lose track. 58% of recruiters use social media to promote their employer brand. And we need to think about what we can do, because majority of the recruiters that I worked with in the past use their value proposition as, I've been in business, or we've been in business for the last 30 years. While that's impactful, that's not showing the value to them. You need to get to the point of what is in it for them. As we talk about these candidates and sourcing, and we tell them what's in it for them, for these people. And if they're following us on, if you have a platform, whether it's Facebook, if that's where your candidates are, or LinkedIn, if that's where your candidates are, we need to figure out the candidate experience. It has to be different. It can no longer, if you think about a first impressions no longer start at the first interview. Candidates will always form opinions about you, your workplace, from sources like Glassdoor, certified profiles, LinkedIn before they apply, Reddit. We're going to talk more about that. This shift means job seekers can gather information and seek decisions and make decisions without ever having a conversation with you. So to attract that top talent, it's crucial in these early impressions to align with what the candidate's looking for, not making it more difficult, not making more clicks. Today's job seekers have more leverage and firm expectations for employers. You have to represent yourself as an employer of choice, or your company that you're working with as an employer of choice, because we're not the only ones selling ourselves anymore for these companies. And let's face it, research shows that millennials seek purpose in their work. Gen Zs are described as psychologically and emotionally wanting healthier workplaces. Previously, our primary goal was to be out there to secure employment, but now candidates are looking for workplaces that resonate with their personal values. So when you have someone go out on an assignment or set up at a place, you need to maybe ask for a Glassdoor review, automate those pieces. Your application data shows over 3 years that it has really gotten to be a tight labor market. So in 2025, you're going to want to move fast before your competition scoops up your candidates quickly. Even in direct hire, they're talking to many people. So whether their best access to talk is through texting, you need to figure out what is the easiest way to communicate. What is their motivations for moving? You need to speak with them in any way, shape, or form that applies to them. And then when we get to 2025, when we're here, oh my gosh, that's crazy to think. We have to figure out how to get those transferable skills to match. I was doing a consultation with one of my friends, actually. She was a Division I college coach, and she was applying for an HR job. And she's like, well, I don't have any of those skills. I'm like, you've never budgeted? Well, no. You didn't run a budget for the softball program? Well, yeah, I actually did. I maintained XYZ. She's like, well, I've never done performance plans. I'm like, well, you have. Have you ever worked with these girls on applying for what's next? Oh, I guess I have. Or how to get more playing time? I guess I have. You have to think about the transferable skills and coaching them to be able to get more, to apply for different positions. Um, that's a whole nother thing. So we have to really be intentional on what we're doing. It's time for us to start thinking differently for our candidates, what transferable skills mean, and how we're selling them the right way to the clients and the people that we're working with. We talked about this. AI is making things move faster. Your teams are far too busy to remember to reach out to a candidate to stay top of mind, reach out for referrals that they possibly have, request references, maybe to re engage a year down the road after a placement. Um, Redeployment isn't obviously something we do necessarily in direct hire, but if you have a contract staffing or a staffing arm of your business, you have to think about redeployment. There's no doubt that you have the contacts in your system. And hopefully, you have a system like ours that you can get the data you need to be the most efficient. So, I won't go into too much of those. We do have a podcast on the 4 R's of automation and how to set those up and what those should look like. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you. And there's an ebook too. Heck, I forgot about that. Unconventional talent sources. You have to meet them where they are. Sorry, I skipped ahead too quickly. Whenever you think of meeting where they are, that means, are you tapping into user groups, professional communities? Are you leveraging industry conferences? Not just conferences, but maybe virtual events, happy hours, social hours, whatever that looks like, exploring maybe those niche job fairs or specialized talent pools. You aren't going to know, you may know some of them, but literally every developer that I worked with through Microsoft, I actually used to run an IT desk. I would ask the question, where else are you finding your information? I would think that I would know all the things, and then I would hear something new. And I would try to put myself where they were. So you need to start having the conversations with your candidates of, where are you? What user groups are you attending? Where are you at? A big conversation lately is different social media platforms. We all know LinkedIn is a place to be. Yes, depending on your industry, and most 190% of the time in direct hire, it is on LinkedIn. So, number one, are you connecting with the people that you need to each week? I always like to say 10-4-2, you need to connect, or you need to engage with 10 different posts. You need to make at least 2 posts on your own as recruiters, and you need to share something else. But the other caveat is I always tell people to connect with at least 25 candidates or hiring authorities in their space each entire week. So think outside of that though. Are you on Facebook groups that your teams are in? What about TikTok? TikTok is on the hot seat right now for sourcing. Another conversation that has come up so frequently right now, Twitter, yes, but Reddit groups. There are Reddit groups for recruiters. There are Reddit groups for user groups within each individual space. Are you there? Are you engaging with them? Are you on the other platforms that matter to your industry? If you're not, I would encourage you to be. Because let's face it, if we automate some of those things and take some of the things off of our plate, we can allow some time to meet new candidates in different places to stand out. Unless we can do it differently. Okay, this is my favorite slide, and this is a lot. So if you need to take a screenshot of it, you're allowed, I promise. But beyond the fact of the free, there are some free tools here. What sourcing tools are you using? Are you using Doximity? That's for healthcare professionals. What about Behance? Are you working with any marketers, any illustrators or designers? What about Rally Point? It is for military personnel and vets. GitHub for developers, Dribble for creatives. Jared uses Doximity. I love that. Funny, Jared, because a lot of people didn't even know that existed in my one conversation that we were talking about. Angel List is for investors and talent startups. Telegram is public and private groups. Discord for gamers. Hunter.io is by far one of my favorite tools for email extraction when I'm looking to email somebody. It is a free tool. Mighty Recruiter gives you candidate contact information. Good old-fashioned Boolean creation. Use AI for that. That helps. And we actually partner with some amazing paid tools. So Hire Easy, Zoom Info, Seek Out, Resume Library, Interstellar. And we actually have our own thing called CDE, is Candidate Data Enrichment, where you can enrich the data right in your system without ever having to leave. So if you're interested, reach out to support. There are so many tools. All right. We talked a little bit about this. Finding candidates and sourcing talent effectively really means, again, meeting them where they are. This strategy is crucial for sourcers, recruiters to really maximize the chance of connecting with the right individuals who may be not actively seeking opportunities, but they're open to them. There's some stats out there that I think it's like 80% of people will take a conversation on LinkedIn, whether they have the little banner on their LinkedIn profile that they're open to a job. Everyone wants to hear about what's next, especially in the direct hire space. So you have to leverage all of these things: networking events, associations and meetings, industry conferences. When I was in IT, we did meetups. So for developers, we hosted pizza and meetups at our place. We paid for the pizza. I was there. I got to meet all these new developers locally in our area. And luckily, I'm in Ohio. So you think of Ohio, but there are like 3 major hubs of cities all within a couple hours driving distance. And I could really be at any of these user groups. It was amazing. If you're looking for new talent, are you doing job fairs? Are you at college and career days for universities? Or are you on Handshake? If you're looking for internships or someone out of college, user groups, there can be hackathons, meetups, industry trade shows, alumni events, summer internships. Maybe you want to create your own summer internship or work with your clients to do that. But if you don't ask, you won't know. How many of you have heard of X-ray sourcing? Recruitum X-ray search. Give me a yes in the chat if you have, or a no if you have not. Tell me you're alive. Because this is actually a really cool tool. Using this X-ray search to find candidates is really powerful. Yes. Awesome, Gwen. Good. I love that you guys are using it. No, but Mary Lou, I think you're gonna. Yes, but not used. No. X-ray really involves, think about using Google to scrape LinkedIn profiles for free, not having a recruiter seat, which means you can view profiles without being restricted by LinkedIn's package limitations, right? Whether you're a first or second, tier connection. And this method actually is particularly advantageous because it allows you to search for synonyms, meaning you can search for Google candidates as it relates to terms and phrases that they find on LinkedIn profiles that really match your criteria. I love me a free tool. I'm sorry, my mouse is going crazy. I love me a free tool, and this is something that is pretty cool. I would encourage you to check it out if you have not. And there's actually a screenshot here. So if I would have used this to look for Director of Industry Relations, which is my title, you will see on the right-hand side that it gives me the LinkedIn profile, and I can click directly to go to those exact people. Okay. Now, if we think of the future of recruiting, we all are probably using a form of ChatGPT, I'm going to guess. We're not necessarily behind the ball that much. But AI is the catalyst that amplifies our capabilities, not the shortcut that bypasses the effort. I don't want you to think AI is the easy button. But what I would love, I'm just going to show you real quick. If you're not using a piece of tool that we have, I want to tell you. But there are so many tools out there. There's ChatGPT, there's Claude, he's my favorite. Google Gemini, Fletcher, Quill, Hire Easy, Hire Logic, CapCut, Perplexity, Grammarly. There are so many things. and they all pride themselves on doing something differently. There are generative AI tools, there's reporting and analytics tools, there's planning and scheduling AI tools, and AI is amazing. But we have to figure out how to use it correctly and not get lost in all the tools. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've heard here at Crelate. Recruiters want AI to do the following, okay? They want them to source and automate to get qualified candidates. They want them to mass write and outreach to, wow, mass write outreach that stands out from other massively written pieces of content, actively search and qualify candidates. The people also want it to schedule the interviews for them. They want it to generate a targeted offer. They want them to manage the placement, the start date, the communication. They want marketing insights on it, and they want sales communication and targeted marketing to these people. I mean, that sounds amazing, right? AI is amazing. But I think AI does your job when it does all these things. And what recruiters need AI to do is to help them to do things faster. Help humans do more human things. Help us reduce time and friction between human touch points. Get me to the human touch point faster. Get me to the phone call faster. Help me stay more organized. Help me reveal ideas and unlock data that I forgot about. And what's next? Help me figure out what my day-to-day is. Because let's face it, we talk to too many people, have too many conversations to stay abreast of it all. So that's what we need AI to do. So the next evolution of recruiting tech is really real recruiter intelligence. I'm going to quickly show you Copilot by Crelate. This is actually built into your system. So Copilot can draft an email for you. This is just a general whether it's there, but what it does, it actually uses your data in your system, your notes, your information, your placement, things that have happened with this candidate to write emails, whether it's a regular length, a shorter length, a longer length. Maybe they'll write a happy birthday message for you, an anniversary, talk about a job order, any initial connections, and it just helps you move faster. Other things that it can do. It can help you create these emails for the job orders. It can actually remind you, if you see all the way to the right, you know what? It's been 24 days since Aaron's start date. Aaron started at a new job. Maybe you need to check in to see how their first month's gone. Maybe it's about a week since you reached out to Aaron. Do you need to give him an update or respond to him? You know what? Aaron's birthday was actually a week ago or a day ago. You need to wish him a happy birthday. Maybe you want to tidy up a record. How many times do you go into LinkedIn and you realize their URL is wrong, their phone number is wrong? That does connect. And maybe their zip code's wrong. And if we're searching on zip code radius, you can clean all of that up at the click of a button. So this is like my favorite feature. I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about Crelate. I'm sorry. I lied just a smidge, because what I love is you're not going to put all of your private information into a generative bot to figure out what you need to say, how you need to say it. It's built in without ever having to leave your system, and you can gain more information. So for those of you, does it provide insight reports on time fills as well? There is reporting for that, Denise. Yes. For those of you who don't have Crelate, that is okay. Katie and I, one of the books that we actually created a while ago was ChatGPT and 10 use cases with prompts. So there's 10 use case scenarios. So I'm going to leave this up here for a second while I continue to talk through it. You can use this QR code to scan, or we might be able to drop a link to at some point. But the prompts are, look at you, Katie, you are on it, girlfriend. They're here. They're use case scenarios in your business for recruiting and sales. There's a little bit of both in here that you can use. Copy, paste, tweak them however you need. But as you see these, they're not just a one sentence prompt. You have to be, one of the new jobs probably is going to be a prompt expert. You have to be a prompt expert to get the kind of information you want out. And let's face it, I'm moving too fast sometimes, and I don't have the time to create the right prompt that I want. So we actually did a lot of that legwork for you. So download this book. No, no strings attached. We want you to use it to do more. Will you be sending a recording with all of these links from this call? I'm going to let Katie answer that, but it will be in the links for the podcast as well, Denise. And Katie said yes. So 100%. There are all the things. It's like Christmas over here. I feel like Oprah. You get an ebook and you get an ebook. I am far from Oprah, but it's still fun to think that. Okay. In today's competitive recruiting industry, brands are essential for continuing to attract top talent. I want you to think of a brand as not just a company brand. It is also your personal brand. You need to think of it as your storefront. You do not always think as the company is it, but you have to establish your company as well as your leaders underneath of your company. You want them always sharing content. Think about it, your social as the always on campaigns that consistently engage your target audience. So your sales team should be speaking to your hiring managers. Your recruiters should be speaking to the talent that they want to connect with. You need to tailor the content to this, speaking directly to the needs and interest of those specific groups. So let's say you're in IT, for instance, address the latest challenges, maybe that developers are facing. If you're targeting C-suite executives, discuss the market changes and challenges and strategic solutions that you're hearing. Share information from latest websites of maybe government regulations, new details on DE&I. Depending who you're working with. If you're working with healthcare, focus on issues like burnout, compensation changes, and industry shifts. I know this sounds specific in the idea of time consuming, but you can't afford not to do this. This is absolutely stuff that you have to do. If you're connected with me in any way, shape, or form, you might get tired of seeing my content. I post a lot of stuff. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I do. So you first, when you start this whole process, you have to create content for your company pages. Yes, if you are a leader in your organization, you want to think about two things. Your candidates aren't just following your company, they're following the people at your company. So this message has to get through all those individual channels. Most of the time, you have all these wonderful candidates in your database, but your candidates don't always follow your brand. They follow and connect with the recruiters that they're working with. Those were the people that I worked with. I'll give you an example. I have not recruited in quite a while. I'm just going to say quite a while. And while I was recruiting, that was my son's 11. So at least over 10 years ago, I was recruiting one gentleman for a Microsoft opportunity. That gentleman is now a very close friend of ours. He understood, and I spent the time with him, helping him find his next need, helping him work through the things that he needed. I helped him work through his resume. I helped figure those pieces out, and I talked to him at all costs. It wasn't just an email back and forth transactionally. Hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do this? That man actually now still fishes with my husband at least 4 times a year. You can create good relationships with these candidates, but you have to think about the benefits for them. I'm going to go back to that. What makes your organization and your people unique? What is the benefits? What is the culture? What is the growth opportunities, whether it's internally and or for the clients that you are absolutely working with? You also need to leverage different content. Do you have testimonials? Do you have success stories? Do you have NPS ratings to be able to share? Because your recruiters need their chance to brag too. They need to show the wonderful thing and the time that they're putting in their efforts, because that's their brag board in a sense, but it's their storefront to say, yes, you have to work with someone like me because this is the value you're going to get. Be creative. Here is just some snapshots of things that I put out for content to people like you that are recruiters. This should look familiar if you just downloaded this. This is the ChatGPT 101 ebook. Do quote cards. Quote cards are easy to do with AI these days. You need to generate content across various channels. Start with a 3-minute video that can be segmented or repurposed. That's what we do with this podcast. This workshop becomes a podcast. You see snippets of videos. You have to develop a company culture to showcase the work and highlight why candidates should choose your agency and firm over others. We talked about including those things. You could also maybe host webinars, live Q&A, talk video, um, job postings, write thought leadership content, leverage social media. Don't just be on LinkedIn. Go try other platforms, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. I have not figured out Instagram. So when you do, come back and tell me. But create graphics, create images, develop things where you are giving information to other people. Madeline Mann is somebody that sticks out in my head. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. I'll see if I can pull her up while we're doing this. She is someone that works with people to try to give them tips on resume writing, on what's next, how you can better find your next opportunity. DMADA. No, I can't spell right now. So I don't necessarily know how to spell her name, but she's a good resource. But think about, what does your candidates want to hear about? You have to be in front of them at all times. And that is where you truly make a difference. AI can't replace constantly being there, because that's where people are searching. So be where they're searching, be where they're present. But then you have to automate it. This, I'm sure, sounds like a lot of work to you all right now. And it is sometimes, absolutely. But if you use, there's some free tools out there. So I'm going to give you a snippet on my life. This is a tool that I use. It's called Buffer. There is a free version of this. There are many different tools that you can use to do this. But there is a screenshot of all the things that I take my time to post on platforms. So you'll see there's a Facebook post, there's an Insta, or there's a LinkedIn post, and those are the only two channels that I really post on. But whoa, sorry, I scrolled. You see that some days I'm posting 3 times a day. Some days I'm posting twice. Some days I'm posting on one platform. Another day I'm posting on another. But what I try to do is I try to schedule my activity and I publish them for 2 weeks. So I don't have to think about it. If I have to think about posting something at the time I want it to be posted, I can guarantee you it's going to be forgotten. So help your teams do something like this. Give them the tools that they need to say, hey, this is how you can do this at scale. This is how you can make your life easier. Here's another tool and resource to help you grow. So this is buffer.com, by the way. With that being said, how we hire impacts who we hire. We explored different strategies, and some of them were not new or earth-shattering. I know that. But some of these tools, like referrals and references, we get away from because there's not enough hours in a day and we fight fires. So do your best to scale your organization to do these things behind the scenes. Use sequencing tools, figure out what the 4 R's that you want to automate. There's amazing sourcing tools, both for free and paid. Get a part of the community and where your candidates are. Ask where they're present at. So with all of that being said, I think I have a little bit of time here. You can skip that. Katie, I don't even know if there was any more questions. I know there was a few pieces here. I'll leave this up right now. If you don't know, obviously all of these things turned into a podcast for us. There is a QR code here that you can actually scan to be a part of our mailing list, and that you can get notified on live events. So we're all places that you want to be. Save this so you can listen to it later or share with your teams, because that can be the first place to give them insight to how they can run their desk better for their candidates and where they are.
Hey.
Hi. There's no real questions right now.
No, I think that you covered it pretty dang well.
Shocker, I talked a lot.
What? I think that there's a few extra ebooks that we can drop in here for you guys. I'm going to drop in the multi-channel touch plan strategy. Courtney alluded to it when she was talking about you were talking about your 10-4-2.
Yeah, but honestly, that's okay. Like this touch point strategy is essentially how do I stay in front of them and what cadence? Maybe your organization and your firm already has that done, and that's okay. We initially created this for selling to be in front of or to be in front of clients. But there's actually a form that you can use. We have scripts built into this bad boy. You can take it and create it your own and then do that at scale in your sequencing in your ATS, or give it to your teams as a tool to create their own, to figure out what is the strategy that I want to use, or tell them the strategy you want them to use.
And then to follow up and wrap up everything that you've talked about today, I'm also going to drop the sourcing strategies ebook.
Ooh, I forgot about that.
I know, so much great content. So we can go ahead and include that here. If you're listening live on, or not live, if you're listening on the podcast recording, we will drop all of these into the show notes. So make sure that you look in the show notes to see all the ebooks. Courtney, I think that might be a wrap for us today. But if any of you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us, Courtney, on LinkedIn. If you can actually drop your LinkedIn profile.
And our email's here too, fulldesk@crelate.com if you have questions. LinkedIn.com. I need to figure out I don't even know what my LinkedIn is, Katie.
That's okay. My keyboard seems to be freaking out a little bit. Sorry if there's a couple extra letters.
There is mine. Oh, it came across as Crelate, but there is mine. Connect with me if you're not already connected. I would love to hear from you. And again, if you use different tools that we didn't talk about today, would love to hear about them. I am always about what's next and what's cool and what's going on.
Awesome, Cork. I am going to go ahead and hop off.
With that being said, we appreciate the time and the effort, and we know that your business is not simple. It's not easy. It's not quick. But in order to be intentional with what you're doing, you really have to put the effort in where you have time. You have to be able to make sure that you have the opportunity to scale, to have more human touches. And these things that we talked about today and automate them are going to be your golden bucket to be able to do those faster. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at fulldesk@crelate.com. Follow us on the podcast. And if you like this content, I would love for you to go, if you're listening on the podcast, to go leave us a rating and review. And don't forget to follow us on our website for any new live events. And last but not least, oh my gosh, there's so many things, Katie. It's literally the idea of don't forget about March 20th. March 20th is our virtual conference. We want you to join us. It's more different and original content from some amazing thought leaders in our space, specific to exec search and direct hire. We want you to be there. It is completely free. Can't wait to see you there. And with that being said, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.